Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of ICU Leadership and Coaching Academy. I am Dziyana Shkot, and I'm the president of International Coaches Union Association based in Luxembourg. And today is the topic that is one that resonates deeply with the future of business, coaching, and humanity itself. As the world becomes increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence, it's emotional intelligence that might just keep us human. So, the topic is Leaders of the Future, the interplay of emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence. And I'm honored to have with me a visionary voice in this space. It's Dr. Mike Posey. Dr. Mike Posey is a professor at Franklin University in Columbus, United States of America. He's keynote speaker, trainer, facilitator. He has successful entrepreneurial experience, YouTube influencer. He's father of 5 kids and grandpa of 3. And he's a brain cancer survivor. He lives in Florida. So welcome, Dr. Mike Posey. Welcome, Florida.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And as I was mentioning to Dr. McDaniel earlier, I chose the background that I have. This is actually Ernest Hemingway's old house in Key West, excuse me, in Key West, Florida, in the United States. And I chose it because Ernest Hemingway, for those of you that have read any of his books or seen any of the movies that were based on his books, was really into what it means to be human and the human condition. And his story is one of being human. Also, the house is an engineering marvel. In other words, at the time they built this house behind me, you can see kind of the way the ironwork is done, all that kind of stuff. It took a lot of technology going into building his home. And so today we're talking about the intersection kind of artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. And I'd like to start by kind of throwing out a contention. And my contention is that organizations that emphasize emotional intelligence as well as artificial intelligence and then communicate that properly are going to perform exponentially better in the long run than those organizations or leaders that just kind of eschew emotional intelligence and don't pay any attention to it, or pay some attention to it, but don't seem to look at the interplay between the two. So that's what that's what I am interested in. That's what I do research on, look at, all that sort of thing, is that intersection between EI and AI. And so I always say, and I have a formula that I put up, which is AI plus EI equals EE. And that means artificial intelligence plus emotional intelligence equals epic, exponentially great organizations, exponentially epic organizations. I'm sorry. And I think that you can't have one without the other. And right now, we seem to be, as a world, focused on one part of that equation.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike Posey. Before we dive in, let's set the context. So there are a lots of buzz today about artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. But many leaders, they still view them as separate words, and separate meanings are inside of these two words. So let's start with the basic. Could you please briefly describe AI, EI, in your words, from your perspective?
From my perspective, sure. And of course, there's many, I mean, the whole artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, many definitions, thousands probably of books written on it, that sort of thing, on these topics. But from my standpoint, artificial intelligence solves something. All right. It creates answers to things. It has to do, it does this, it pulls answers, it does things, solves tasks, most of the time flawlessly, sometimes totally wrong, gets things totally wrong, messes up, right? But artificial intelligence, AI, seeks perfection, right? Because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to find, whether it's a large learning or model, a generative type of AI type of thing. It's supposed to find a solution. It's based on the Z, the end product. Emotional intelligence, however, is all that stuff between A and Z, right? It's all that stuff from the beginning to the end. It's that journey that we take. And several folks have called it a journey, and have looked at EI is a journey where AI is the destination. Now, when we look at organizations, it's just as important to go on that journey as it is to have the final destination, right? And so that's my distinction, Diane. That's my distinction between AI and EI. Is AI is the destination, or is the endpoint, and is focused on getting to that endpoint. That's the only thing it's focused on. Okay, producing a product, coming up with an answer, that sort of thing. Creating a video, a picture, whatever, that sort of thing. But EI is the human stuff that's in between. It's that journey. It's what we as humans relate to. And so having one without the other seems to me to be kind of a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is beautifully said. I really love it. I even catch myself thinking that if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, or if you don't have self-awareness, or if you are not able to manage your emotions or distressing emotions especially, then no matter how smart you are, how skillful you are in using any tools, you are not going to go far
Right.
long term and sustainable. Like now it's very popular and trendy and like modern age sustainable. You cannot go. And yet in today's world, even our smartness like this, yeah, is becoming digital. But
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence.
But you're right. And you think about this. Think about, we give tests, right? We test people. Are you left brain? Are you right brain? Do you, as human beings, do you want to know just what's on the test as a student, or do you want to know everything about a subject, right? We talk about all this stuff. Think about a sports event, all right? A football game, for instance. What makes a football game exciting? It's the drama. It's the stuff in the middle. If we were to watch a football game where it was just everyone would go down the pitch and all of a sudden there we go, and goal, 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 and it just keeps going like that, we leave that game and we're like, that was a boring game, right? But what happens when people take a kick and it hits off the rail, right? And all of a sudden there's a fight breaking out, or there's something going on and somebody stumbles and falls and then the other person gets the ball. That's the exciting stuff. That's the stuff that we as human beings relate to, and that makes us go, this is what we want to see. It's that journey. It's that destination in between. The end point, of course, every team wants to win, right? So the end point, the product of a football game is the score, right? You're either a winner or a loser, right? That sort of thing. But it would be really boring to watch a chess match where it's every move is perfect. That would be boring. We want somebody to mess up. And it's that messiness that makes us human. And it's that messiness that as we as leaders of organizations and coaches for leaders, with leaders of organizations and things, and as we build organizations, as we're looking at developing products and stuff like that, we have to build that messiness into our product or into our service or into our organization, because if we don't, it's going to be boring as heck at the end. We'll have a great end product, but we're not going to have an epic end product, right? Because it won't have that humanness, that what makes us human, that sort of thing. And so we tend to lose sight sometimes because we look at AI it's a great thing, and it can do so many great things, but the human factor is taken out of it a lot of times. And when we look at something like, for instance, me personally, and I bet you everyone watching this video, I would like to have AI developed to where it does my laundry, or it figures out a way that, I have my vacuum cleaner, my little round Roomba vacuum cleaner that runs around my house. and it knows it doesn't bump into stuff, and it vacuums. I don't have to worry about vacuuming my house. That's a great application of AI, right? Because then it gives me a chance to be creative, to use my messiness, my what it is to be human. It gives me that chance, and I can then use that energy and knowledge and everything to develop more products, or to help people in there's or to build a service, an organization out, that sort of thing. That's where I want my AI to be. I don't want it to be a robot that walks in my door and takes over, right? But when we see some of these large language models, when we see some of this generative AI and things, we're seeing some great things happen, but we're also seeing some of the human part of the equation being taken out, that emotional intelligence, that EI stuff, that's being taken out of it. I had the occasion to see and I don't know if you all have them where you're from, but an autonomous vehicle, a great use of AI, right? But inside of it, it was something that I did not want to spend more than 10 minutes in, right? Because the seats weren't comfortable. The looking around at the dash, there wasn't really even a dashboard, but just looking around, it just felt like I was sitting in a pod moving from A to Z. And it got me to my destination, right? But other than that, I didn't feel like there was something missing. And so I hope I'm making sense. That human part of things is just as important, if not more important, now, especially because we have all this focus on the technology.
Yes, this is a beautiful thought, and I catch myself also in some insights, especially your words. We want someone to mess up. Otherwise, it's boring. It's
Yeah,
life of computers, life of AI.
right.
Because AI can answer us, give lots of instructions, do lots of our routine job, but to mess up or to add emotional intelligence in any process, it makes us human, like you said, live.
It
Yes.
does.
And now I know that you have developed a very fascinating equation that capture your thinking about how these two forces interact, artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. Could
Right.
you please share that equation with us and what does it mean?
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, and it's very simple. It's kind of one of those obvious type of things. You need to look at the things that are the commonalities within AI and EI, right? You need to look at what things can we do that are similar, and then you have to look at things that what the juxtapositions, right? You have to look at things that where AI may trip up the human aspect of a product or a service, or where the human aspect may trip up the AI aspect of a product or a service. And that is it needs to be communicated to those who are creating, right? Those who are programming, because when we think about technology, any technology, I don't know, 500-600 years ago in the printing press, or a steam engine or something like that, or whether it's a GPS that when I had my surgery, there was a GPS that mapped my brain and told my surgeon exactly where to go and grab the cancer out of my brain, and now I'm cancer free. So that's a great application of AI. However, there were some issues involved that might trip that system up if they didn't interject some of the human aspect to it, right? In terms of we have a human being on the table, and we have to maintain their life while we're working on them, all that sort of thing, whole bunch of things. Anyway, to get back to your question, you have to look at what the commonalities are within an organization, and how AI enhances the organization. But you have to be honest with yourself and your organization, and look at how AI might trip you up as a company, and what makes sense, right? I think I use the example of BMW because I know BMW. My son is a researcher. His job is working on the human aspects of AI in their vehicles, right? That's one of the things that he does. And so BMW is a highly automated car factory, highly automated automotive factory. However, I mean, they'll spend millions and millions of dollars on finding the right sound for their turn signal, so it doesn't irritate the driver, so it doesn't irritate the passengers of the vehicle. So that right there is the combination of the two. In other words, great AI, right, but also great EI. So they've taken into consideration as a company both of those things. How do our cars, function engineering wise? All this sort of thing. How can we make them so that they don't bump into things? How can we make them, to turn into the lane, not turn into a lane with another car? My car parks, my BMW parks itself, that sort of thing. All of these are great AI technologies, but then also the dashboard and the seat is very comfortable for me to sit in, right? The dashboard has the buttons exactly where me as a human wants to push those buttons. And so as coaches, we need to think about looking at or helping folks realize that you need both of these things, you need the technology behind the dashboard, but you also need to know where humans are going to want to touch that dashboard, right? And why? Why do they want it? Why do they want that? Why do they want their radio buttons here? Why do they want their cruise control buttons here? That sort of thing. And I think we do a disservice to leaders when we coach them, or when we're talking with them, not to talk about the human aspect and not to talk about the fact that, maybe that is not where you should place that thing, or maybe that's not the type of AI that people are looking at. I'm an academic, so I work at a university. And so people are like, well, AI, everyone's going to cheat using AI. Well, maybe instead of thinking that way, why don't we think of AI as a great tool to give us ideas, to generate some ideas. Generative AI is a great tool so that we can generate ideas to then be creative on our own. So now instead of just having one idea that we come up, we have 30 from which to choose, right? Because we have this great AI engine that we can use. So let's teach students how to use AI properly, instead of just saying that they're just going to cheat and we're just going to cut it off and not let them use it at all. It's the same way with any company, whether it's a huge multinational corporation, or it's a small, or it's an academic type of concern.
Yes, it's very interesting. Yes, and I think it reframes the conversation, not human vs machine, but how do we bring human depth into the machine era, in AI era? Okay,
We
so let's go deeper into your main contention. What is the real interplay between AI and EI, and why does it matter for leaders and coaches right now? What are we missing if we don't pay attention? If we don't pay attention in both of to both of these areas?
The main thing that I would say is because organizations are made up of human beings, and human beings write the code. Human beings have created all the knowledge in which generative AI draws from. Our paradigm, our world paradigm is only as much as human consciousness has, right? I mean, we only know what we know. Generative AI can create more things and come up with ideas, but they do it within the paradigm that humans exist. So, we have to think about the fact that our organization is made up of humans. How do we serve, and our products and our services almost exclusively serve humans? I mean, even if we have an electric company, right, the power company, the electricity comes from our lights that's creating all of this. It's still we are humans here looking on Zoom, and we are consuming the product. So therefore, there has to be some sort of human element involved. There has to be something. In terms of employees, in terms of people who work for an organization, they're also humans, right? And we need to find out what makes people tick. That's something that we get focused on we got to produce this product. We got to produce this product. Well, are we producing it efficiently? And my contention is we produce it more efficiently when we find out what makes people tick, because we recognize, and we recognize people as being human, as having issues, as having, I gotta make a paycheck, I gotta send my kids to college, I gotta get home, I got a soccer game to go to, all these sort of things, right? And so, if we as leaders recognize that humans work in our organization, then we not only recognize the humanness of the product or service that we're producing, but we also recognize the humanness, I guess, just as a phrase, the human nature of the people that work within that organization. And I would contend that if we deal with the human beings within the organization, the output of that organization, the AI output of that organization, is going to have a human factor. If we don't take into consideration the humans within the organization we're working, then the output of that organization is probably not going to have a human factor. The output of that AI that the organization uses or creates or whatever. And so that to me is a major thought, and I mean, is a major thing that we need to do as leaders, as coaches. We need to be telling our folks that we coach and that we work with, we need to be telling them, you need to find out what makes people tick and go from there, because everything stems from a human being that has all different kinds of things. And so all different things going on in their lives. And if we do that, then our end product using AI will have a human element in it. It can't help but not.
Yes, there is also a beautiful paradox here that technology is rising, and yet it pushes us to return to our deeper human essence, that to truly lead this AI. And it's striking that the very things that AI can do, like empathy, self-awareness, deep listening, all the skills that we teach through coaching, all these skills are now becoming the most strategic leadership skills. And then to lead and to be the future leader, as I understood based on the discussion, that your answers, you have to include emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence in your leadership skills. And one of the key takeaways from this event is exploring the top 10 leadership techniques for thriving in the AI era. Could you share a few that, in your experience, combine both AI awareness and EI depth?
A couple of things, yes. Explore the messiness within an organization, and what makes that messiness important or not. That's the first thing. That's one thing I would tell people to do. And I when I work with folks, that's what I do. Find out what makes people tick. What makes people tick in your organization? Why do people come to work every day? Right? Do they come to work every day to produce a widget? If they do, are they happy about it? Are they happy about the way it goes about it? Or that sort of thing. Find places that AI can help your organization, but maybe there are places that using AI actually hinders your progress in an organization. And sometimes we think about, it's my last point. Our number 9, I guess, in my top 10 is bells and whistles get our attention, but the human factor keeps our attention. So as we're talking to people, do you want your organization to last in the long term? Do you want your product to be one of those epic products? Do you want your product to be a product that people are going to want to use? Or your service? Do you want your service to be something that people are going to want to partake in? That sort of thing. So maybe using AI to get attention, and to generate some ideas, to do certain tasks, that sort of thing. But the bells and whistles are great, but it's the human factor that keeps our attention over the long term. It's the stuff that comes in here and here. A couple other things: recognize that organizations are made up of human beings. Look for commonalities, and recognize that to effectively lead and to have a long-term product, you really have to manage both the artificial intelligence you're using in an organization, whatever that may be, however you use it, and you have to manage the people within that organization and how they use it. You also have to think about the end product, the people who are the end users. How are the end users going to interface with your product or with your service? And is that AI going to trip them up, or is it going to actually enhance? And just because we can do it doesn't mean we have to, right?
Yes, this is very interesting. And Dr. Michael, let's bring this into practice for our audience of coaches, managers, leaders. Why must we understand this relationship, AI and EI? What specific value does it offer to the corporate world, to the teams, and to the coaching?
Because it's not going away. That's the real simple answer, right? And that's the short answer. Artificial intelligence, generative AI, everything that we have, that's not going away. It's going to become more and more. We're going to see these applications more and more within organizations, within services. Human beings aren't going away either, right? So figuring out how to deal with both of those things is what is important, as is something that we should be teaching and that we should be coaching and that we should be training. All these things we should be doing because neither one's going away. I'm not going to have a robot come in my door right now and kill me, and all of a sudden all humanity is gone. I know a lot of people talk about that, and I'm not an expert at AI at all, but I just know just a little bit. But ultimately, that's way down the road, right? That's something that's not going to happen next Tuesday. But what is going to happen is I'm still going to be here. You're still going to be here. Gary's still going to be here. We're all still going to be here as humans. But we have to get along with the artificial intelligence applications that are developed and that we can develop. And so as coaches, we have to be able to impress upon the leaders of organizations and, the HR offices, the CEOs, the managers, the supervisors. We have to impress upon the fact these two things aren't going away. How do we make them work together?
And there is an interesting question about ethics. How does this emotional intelligence, ethics, and artificial intelligence can also interact? And can they interact or not?
Well, they should interact because, again, human beings have a radar. We all have a radar and we know what's right and wrong. We have a moral compass, right? We might contend some people don't, but for the most part, most people do around the world, right? Have some sort of moral compass. Using these AI applications, we as an end user can detect with our moral compass whether or not this is a proper use of artificial intelligence. We can detect that. We kind of because you've seen this happen where people are like, I don't really want that, right? I don't want that to map my entire house and all of a sudden sell me furniture. That seems a little weird. That seems like there's microphones all over my house. That sort of we tend to back off from that stuff. So if we're developing a product, if we own a company that developing a service or a product, we need to be certain that the ethical aspect of that product or that service is being taken into consideration, because the end user, a human being, their radar will come up and they will, again, that's what makes a long-term success or a short-term success and maybe a long-term failure, or vice versa, whatever. And so we have to take in mind ethics. If we don't, there's going to be rebellion. And I say rebellion not in a historical type of sense, but in a sense of me as a human being. I'm going to be like, I'm not using that product. I don't want that service. I'm not going to sign up for that service or that sort of thing, because it's not ethical. It goes against what I believe. And so we have to take those considerations or we have to take that into consideration when we talk with CEOs and leaders and supervisors and organizations and things like that. Because if we don't, the end user is not going to use it ultimately. if it's so ethically immoral, or if it doesn't match our ethics.
Mhm. Yes, this is very interesting and very deep and long communication can be. And so this is not just a trend, as I understood, it's a leadership capacity nowadays. And emotional intelligence together with artificial intelligence, it's not just soft skills, they are strategic skills that every leader of the future should have. Okay, Dr. Mike, thank you very much for your deep and timely conversation. And before we close, I would like to ask what final thoughts or quote or maybe message would you like to offer to the coaches, to leaders navigating the future with both AI and humanity in hands?
Don't be afraid. And I say that, and don't be afraid of artificial intelligence. Don't be afraid of what comes from here, the emotional intelligence, right? What comes from here. Don't be afraid of that. I think too many times we're like, oh, I don't know much about AI, or I don't know much about. I'm kind of afraid to get to the emotional level of what people, that messiness that we talked about. I'm afraid to get to. Don't be afraid. Try it. And as you talk with people, and as you work with people, try to help them not be afraid of it either. And also know that just because it's there, you don't have to do anything about it. In other words, again, it's we don't have to use everything that comes our way. We don't have to, to put every single bell and whistle in our product or service. And so it goes both ways, really. Don't be afraid of it, and realize that we can, or we don't have to use it.
Beautiful insights. And to all our listeners, this is your moment now. Ask yourself, am I growing my emotional intelligence as fast as technology is growing around me? Yes or no? If no, then what options do you have? And what steps will you take to grow your emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence together? So comment your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned to our future coming events and interview. Thank you very much for coming, for being with us, and thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Michael Posey, for your very interesting and eye-catching, eye-opening, heart-opening conversation.